If you're in the market for Marantz Cinema 50, then this video is for you. I'm going to share with you the vital information that I found out about this product, so before you part with your hard-earned cash, you must watch this video first. So get ready, grab yourself a drink, put your feet up. Let's take a look at what people are saying about this new AV receiver. Key information: 9 power channels, 11.4 processing capabilities, 4 independent subwoofer outs. It's got 6 HDMI inputs that support HDMI 2.1, and it's got 3 HDMI outputs. There is also support for Dirac room calibration software. It has virtual height speaker technology, so if you don't have height speakers in your setup, this AV receiver will emulate the effect using the speakers that you have. So let's have a look at what people are saying about this AV receiver. First of all, let's sum up Andrew Robinson. Now, this AV receiver has 2 types of room calibration. It has Audeze, which it comes with out of the box, and it also comes with Dirac Live, which comes out in March. Andrew Robinson tested Audeze, as that's the only one that was available to him. He says Audeze works and it works well, but he prefers his manual settings as he finds Audeze is too lean sounding. As for gaming, Andrew Robinson says gaming was awesome and there were no input lags. If you have 2 games consoles, there's no more having to choose which one gets the good HDMI port, as all of the HDMIs on the Marantz Cinema 50 are HDMI 2.1 compliant. Andrew Robinson was also really surprised how great music sounded. He says, "I love the way film sounded, especially when configured in a 7.1.2 setup." He also goes on to say, tonally, the Marantz Cinema 50 is a true Marantz product, possessing their trademark richness, dare I say warmth, throughout the mid-range and bass. Dialogue is always clear. Andrew Robinson paired his Marantz Cinema 50 with some Arundel speakers. He said his speakers needed a little bit of volume coming from the Marantz to really come to life. He also thinks that this product is not a perfect product. He says the Marantz Cinema 50 does not have a legacy video input such as composite or component. Andrew Robinson also doesn't really like the screen of the Marantz Cinema 50. He says it's limited in its functionality and it isn't easy to read from more than 3 feet away. He also made a comment saying that he didn't like how the receiver was made from plastic. Andrew Robinson compared this Marantz Cinema 50 against Onkyo's current flagship product, the RZ50. He says that the Marantz is a bit smoother up top, but it costs more money. He also prefers the looks, performance and usability of the Marantz Cinema 50. Andrew Robinson's current flagship receiver is the Marantz 8015, which has more features and power. He reckons the Cinema 50 has fewer features and less power, but it's more in line with what he actually needs. Let's move on to the review from Audio Advice. Audio Advice described the Marantz Cinema 50 as big, full, rich and dynamic. The Cinema 50 has a far larger power supply and it has way better dynamics than from the Cinema 60. So what does Shane Lee think about the Marantz Cinema 50? Shane compared the Marantz Cinema 50 to the Stark Sound Fiera 8. Shane says the Stark has punchier bass compared to the Marantz, whereas the Marantz's bass was lighter. The mid-range between the 2 products was negligible. The Marantz had a slightly more forward mid-range presence. The vocalist came out a little bit more in the soundstage. The Stark created a deeper, more 3-dimensional sound compared to the Marantz. He also says the Stark definitely had cleaner separation between the layers. The Stark also had a little bit more clarity compared to the Marantz. Shane also thinks that there was a bit more extension to the high frequencies on the Stark, and it had a little bit more sparkle. The Marantz overall has a warmer sound. Shane also connected these 2 amps to his home theatre setup and used them as AV processors. In terms of audible hiss, that sound when you have no content playing and you can still hear something coming through the speakers, the hiss coming from the Marantz is similar in quantity to the Stark when used as an AV processor. These are both slightly noisier compared to his Macintosh AV processor that he also uses. However, he did say that the Marantz Cinema 50 adds some sort of a buzzing noise as well as the hiss, which is a little bit concerning. In terms of written reviews, I've scoured the net for these, but because this product is still quite new, there really isn't that much out there that's going to add much value to this video. But there is a user review that I have found from the forums, so let's examine that. This user says that he got the Cinema 50 installed and running. Initial impressions are good. He hasn't dived too far yet beyond the initial setup, and listening at default settings. Most important thing, the sound quality does seem great. He didn't pack up his Anthem MRX 740, so he had an opportunity to put the two receivers side by side and swap them back and forth. He says it was difficult to tell the differences between the two receivers, although he thinks the Cinema 50 sounded at least as good as the MRX 740. He said that he used 3 test songs that he knew fairly well and swapped back and forth at least 5 times. If anything, the Marantz Cinema 50 had a little bit more clarity. He also said that he ran some Atmos content with these two receivers. Apparently there was very clear separation and detail, and objects sweeping between channels sounded natural. He did make a comment about how the front plate is plastic and the remote is also plastic, but everything else still feels good. He didn't hear any fan noises coming from inside the receiver. Overall, he feels that the Cinema 50 seems a better deal than the MRX 740. He reckons the user experience is also better with the Marantz Cinema 50 compared to the Anthem MRX 740. So what are my thoughts on the Marantz Cinema 50, taking into account the reviews that I've read, the information I've seen about this product? Now, if you are considering a Marantz Cinema 50, you might also be looking at a Denon X3 800H. Judging by what I've also read about that receiver, the Denon seems a little bit more lean sounding compared to the Marantz Cinema 50. They are made by the same people. Denon and Marantz are the same company essentially. The wide consensus is that the Denon offers a little bit more of a punchy sound in the bass and a little bit sparkly in the trebles, a little bit over processed according to some people, and a bit distorted. I've done a deep dive into the Denon X3 800H, so maybe check out that video that I did before. Now, do I think you should shortlist the Marantz Cinema 50? Overall, I think you should at least shortlist it and demo it, but there's a nagging feeling in my brain that's telling me to maybe wait until Audio Science Review or another company measures this receiver, because if you watch my Denon X3 800 video, you're going to find out that that receiver actually measures worse compared to the previous generation of receivers, which is slightly concerning to me. However, I do think there are some good alternatives out there. First of all, the Arcam AVR5. Perhaps this is a good choice if you want to trade off good sound quality with functionality and features. Arcam is one of the traditional prestige British audio brands, I would say, so that's something, even though they're owned by Harman now, who's also owned by Samsung. But still, I would say it's something. The only thing that worries me a little bit with Arcam products is I haven't tested their AV receivers in terms of the usability. I've heard good things about the sound quality, some bad things, but generally good things. I'm not sure how buggy the software is going to be. Perhaps if anyone has an Arcam, let me know in the comments below. Another option you might consider is the Yamaha A6A. I typically recommend Yamahas because I've never had a Yamaha unit that failed or shut down or anything like that, and they get updates typically. Also, I find they're very customizable, so if you're into manual calibration, then I've had good experiences with Yamahas. Another AV receiver that's hot right now is the Onkyo RZ50. I've heard it's got a very impressive soundstage, according to Andrew Robinson in particular, against this Marantz Cinema 50. I've also read that the Onkyo is a bit more dynamic and slightly brighter sounding than the Marantz. The Onkyo also has Direct Live, which makes it even more competitive with this Marantz Cinema 50. Also, you have the Anthem MRX 540 and the MRX 740. Now, Anthem is more of an audio quality first sort of company, a little bit like Arcam, and I had an Anthem AV receiver back in the day. It was one of their top models. Overall, I had a very good experience with that receiver. However, I found the software to be a little bit buggy. However, the Anthem room correction was very good. The latest versions from Anthem seem very nicely designed, so perhaps go ahead and look at the MRX 540 or the MRX 740. Anyway, yeah, that's all I've got to say. See you in the next video.